I can still hear the rain that night. Thick, cold, unyielding. It fell in a way that made the world feel smaller, like the walls were inching closer. Daniel had returned from his business trip earlier than expected. His suitcase was damp, his eyes heavier than I'd ever seen. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He simply held up my phone, displaying messages I thought I had erased forever. "Your boss?" he said softly. 2 words that shattered a part of me I hadn't even realized was fragile. I didn't lie. I couldn't. The truth was there, written by my own hand, sharp and arrogant. A woman convinced she'd never be caught. That evening, Daniel packed a single bag and left. No yelling. No confrontation. Just a quiet emptiness that lingered in the house for months. 8 years later, I sometimes wake in the night, expecting to hear him on the stairs. I've rebuilt a life since then, or at least something resembling one. I've changed cities, jobs, even the way I live, but some memories don't obey distance. Most people think regret softens over time. Mine only grew sharper. I realized I wasn't longing for Daniel himself. I was mourning the version of me that existed before I shattered him. He once looked at me like I was calm after a storm. After the affair, I became the storm itself. 2 months ago, a friend sent me a photo from our old neighborhood. It was Daniel, older, broader, silver in his hair, standing next to a woman outside a bookstore. She smiled at him in a way that made my chest tighten. There was peace in his expression, something I had never seen with me toward the end. That night, I poured a glass of wine and sat on the balcony, scrolling through old photos, messages, and fragments of a life I had discarded for a fleeting thrill. My affair wasn't love. It was ego, a craving for attention. My boss, Greg, knew the words to make me feel seen, and I clung to them, calling it harmless. But I lost everything that mattered most. Daniel never remarried, or so I thought, until last week. I was in Chicago for a conference when I heard a familiar voice, low and unmistakable. I turned, and there he was, laughing with colleagues at the hotel bar. My first reaction was to flee. I stayed rooted instead. His laughter faded as he saw me. "Laura," he said. My name sounded foreign on his lips. We were frozen between past and present. I wanted to pour out years of rehearsed apologies, confessions, the punishment I had inflicted on myself. But words felt too small. I told him, "You look well." "You too," he replied, though his eyes spoke a different language, perhaps pity, perhaps neutrality. He spoke of moving back to Boston, running his architecture firm, and I asked if he was happy. He smiled quietly. "Yes," he said. Then she appeared, the woman from the bookstore photo. Emily, his fiancée. I managed a polite smile as they left. His final glance was quiet. "Take care, Laura." I watched them disappear, realizing that no years of remorse had prepared me for that moment. I didn't sleep that night. I sat alone, staring at the ceiling, reflecting on the man I had loved and the reckless woman I had become. The next morning, outside a hotel cafe, I looked at my reflection, calm on the surface, trembling inside. 8 years of imagined apologies, 8 years of hoping for a chance to explain. And when I had the opportunity, all I said was, "You look well." Later, I wrote him an email, not to rekindle, not to open old wounds, but because silence had grown unbearable. "Daniel, I saw you yesterday. You looked happy. I don't write to ask anything. I just need to acknowledge what I did. More than betrayal, it was selfishness disguised as desire. I blamed loneliness, stress, everything easier than the truth. But the truth is this, I made you doubt yourself. I made love unsafe. I hope she gives you what I never could." I reread it a dozen times before sending, then turned off my phone. Days passed with no response. On the 5th day his reply arrived. "Laura, I don't hate you anymore. We were different people then. I've learned that sometimes loving someone isn't enough when we are broken. Thank you for writing. Take care of yourself." No drama. No closure like in movies. Just the quiet finality I had needed. I cried for the first time in years without restraint. Walking through Chicago that day, I reflected on how easily we mistake lust for love, validation for connection. Greg, my boss, was long forgotten, while I had built a shrine to my own mistakes. That evening, I watched the river ripple, thinking of Daniel's calm, of the peace he had found with Emily. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't words. It was letting someone live fully without you. When I returned home, I deleted his email, not out of anger but acceptance. Some stories aren't meant to be rewritten. They exist to remind you who you should never become again. Months later, I learned that Daniel and Emily married quietly by the sea. I smiled, not bitterly but softly, genuinely. I started therapy, stopped trying to erase my past self, and began understanding why I had made such choices. Loneliness isn't cured by attention. Guilt needn't define you. And some people enter your life simply to show you what you are capable of losing. Sometimes at night I still think of him, the way he looked then, the way he looked now, free. The memory no longer hurts. It reminds me that healing isn't about being forgiven. It's about learning that you cannot undo the past, only grow from it. If Daniel ever remembers me, I hope it's without anger. I hope he recalls that before the chaos we were good. And if he doesn't remember me at all, that's okay. Because after all this time I finally understand, the greatest consequence of betrayal isn't losing someone. It's losing yourself and finding your way back.